This is Jeff. I'm going to try to talk about Sonar X2 producer and making really long recordings where the artists are not wearing headphones or listening to a click track or a metronome. Sometimes you just go record a gig somewhere, or people just come over and play, and then you end up with a really long recording, and you want to be able to mix it down. So there's a couple of different methods by which you can do it. One is, if you look at this recording, the blue tracks are basically the original tracks, and the colored tracks are the bounces on the bounce downs. And then all of these are automation nodes. Like this green line is a volume automation line. The red is a automation line for pan. In these tracks, there's not a whole lot of automation. The Pro channels do have some stuff on them, but not tons and tons. You know, some compressors and stuff, but it's not massive. And so it's pretty manageable, and the stuff doesn't change that much from song to song. And so it's pretty okay just to go with the automation on the song and then bounce down the different tracks. And it's handy to, as you bounce down the different tracks, to just keep adding new tracks. And then if you want, so this that I'm showing you is, I've got these things grouped, so I either solo one track or the other for the mixed down track, and if I listen to one or the other.
Dance in the night.
And it's an easy way to compare two tracks to see which one you like better. This works fairly well, again, for cases where the effects in the Pro channel really aren't changing that much from track to track. You know, one track is pretty similar to the next.
Goes, that's the way. She was busted.
So there's going to be another case. Okay, so sometimes you have a lot of tracks to mix. Say you make a 3-hour recording of 16 tracks, and the songs actually differ quite a lot one to the next. So in that case, you may dramatically change your Pro channel. You may do a lot of work within the projects, and you want to isolate your changes from one song to the next completely. The best way to completely isolate changes from one song to the next is to actually create a separate project for each song. So as you go, you can end up with a lot of projects, and so I name them something like reverse date 2013 YYY, month 06/22, day, right? And then track 18 is the 18th track mix so far, and then the song name, the weight, so I know what I'm looking at. And they also will sort alphabetically in the file system, or they'll sort by order. And then here we'll just take a quick listen.
You put the load right on me.
So in this case, we have a lot of effects across all the different tracks, and a lot of work mixing it down. If you hold down Control and click the blue icon, you can expand and contract the Pro channels as a group. One thing you can also do, if you group select from the console view and then Control right click group and add to group, you can add a bunch of items. You see the red mark to the setting, so I can turn off these Pro channels by group. That can be handy from time to time, especially if you're having trouble mixing a large project because you have processor constraints, right? Then you can turn off all of the effects for a cluster of tracks at once, and as you work on bouncing to stems and whatever you might be doing. So now I'm going to go copy the project, make a copy of this project. So here I am in the file system, and you can see that I've got an array of projects for this same recording that I've been working on, and I'm just going to click on on the project I want to copy to use as my template. I'm going to do Control-C and Control-V, and that's all that's necessary to actually make a copy of the project. Once the copy is complete, I'm going to want to go inside the project and delete these files because I'm going to rename the project itself. And since it's just copying the WAV files, I can go ahead and do that now. I'm going to go ahead and call this 20 Shape I'm In, which is the name of the next song. If you were paying close attention on the last one, I renamed the wrong things. But anyway, I got the files properly renamed. At this point, I have the Shape I'm In project open, and it is currently basically it's the project is the wait. If we listen, let's listen.
Gotta go, but my friend can stick around.
So it's still the project, the wait, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select all and hit delete and make sure that we get everything there deleted. And I'm going to delete these two markers, and then I'm going to save the project. And by doing that, all I've done, I'm return to 0, the rewind button, so that my time markers at the beginning. All I've done, I've still got all my effects, but I don't have any of my audio. Now, if you go inside the audio folder, it's still there, and so let's go look at that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this, and I'm going to switch to the audio folder for the Shape I'm In. And I'm going to delete all of these WAV files. So now I am truly back to 0. And the next step is going to be to export the items from the project, from the main project that has all 3 hours. So this project has a lot of tracks up there in the navigation view. And you can see that there's 16 different tracks, and they were actually recorded on different sources. You can see here that they don't all end and start at the same time. During a set break, I would stop one machine, then I would stop the other. And they were recorded on separate machines and using SPDIF and slaving between the one and the other in order to get them all lined up. And we've got all the data that we need, and the tracks are kind of roughly named. And I've got markers indicating, you can see by the waveform where the tracks start and stop. Like you can see, maybe that's a song, or maybe that's a song, and there's a song. And but we have 16 tracks across, and we don't want to do all the mixing here again because it's got all the effects in it. We don't want to, we want to be able to change the effects dramatically from song to song if we want to, without risking our ability to go back and remix a prior song. In this case, I'm just going to do Control-A to select all. I am going to select in the time range between the 2 markers I've added. You can just insert markers wherever you want. I think the M key. And then I'm going to do File, Export Audio. And I'm going to export these into the folder for the new song that we're doing, the Shape I'm In. And I'm going to stick them into the audio folder. I'm going to export the tracks, and I want the mono versions of the tracks. I know these are all 24-bit, and since they're 24-bit, I don't need any dithering. I do want to turn off any of this mixing that might go on, because I just want the tracks dumped as they are. And I will give it the name Shape to indicate they will all of the track names will be prefixed with the name Shape, and then have these secondary track names tacked on. So I click Export, I get a warning, and I click OK. And now all of that data is going to dump into this folder. Interestingly, it starts writing all of the files together. It writes all of the files concurrently, which I thought was interesting, probably the same way that it records the files, rather than writing one file and then the next file and then the next file. That would be serially. It writes them all concurrently. And once all the files are exported, then we will import them into our other project. So now we're back in the shape I'm in project, and I'm in the properties for Sonar, and I'm just showing that I uncheck always copy imported audio files, and the reason is that I've already got them in the audio folder, so I don't need to copy them again. Now we are in the main project, and I am just going to put the focus on the first track, do File, Import, Audio, and now I just need to browse to the shape I'm in audio folder. For some reason when I click A sometimes it goes goofy on me. Let's go back. To browse to the shape I'm in audio folder and do Control A, and I get all the files selected, and then I just click Go, and it grabs all the files. Now they don't necessarily line up in the right spots, so I need to do some reorganizing because of the order of the WAV files as exported. And I hold down the Shift button and I drag and I move them around. So I need to find the low tom and move that up here. I need to find Susan's guitar. And all I'm doing here is putting the tracks in the right spots. And I need to find the snare, which is here. If you had them ordered alphabetically, they would go into the right spots already. But all we're doing here is dragging them around so that they fit in the right spots. This doesn't take too long usually. And I do hold down the Shift button to ensure that the tracks don't move in a timeline forwards or back, that the tracks stay where they're supposed to be. So now I got WAP's guitar, Susan's vocals, Susan's guitar, everything's where it's supposed to be. Now I will look at normalizing volumes on some of them. So for example, here's a snare track and the volumes are kind of low. So I'm going to go ahead and normalize that, and I'm going to set to -3 dB so I don't run quite too hot into the effects there. The bass has a loud pop right there. And I don't want that pop going up any louder, so I'm gonna work with that a little later. There's the bass vocal, which the bass player on this particular song may not be singing. Now I'll go ahead and normalize it because I may be able to get some ambient cymbal sounds or other things. When I normalize this vocal track, you can actually see where the person is singing softly near the mic. This is the drummer's vocal, so this is in the wrong spot. So I need to reorder a couple of tracks here. Now sometimes after I do a normalization, I'll Control Z and then Control Shift Z to make sure I can see that it increased in size. I don't want to normalize and decrease the volume on the track necessarily, or I want to reconsider. I want to know if I've done that. So for example, in that case, I can see I'm getting more there. Now do a couple more here. And if you do this similarly on the different tracks, then you will be working with roughly the same levels into your effects on the different tracks. Now this particular track looks like we can do some slip editing to reduce the amount our PC will work applying effects to you know, kind of ambient band sounds, and then we can just select all of the tracks, and if we do clips, fade clips, then we can go ahead and apply fading to all the clips at the same time. Okay, so I was selecting all the tracks. I do clips, fade clips, and select some amount. Then I hover and grab the red handle, and when I hold down Control and I click and drag that red handle, you can see it moving on all the clips at the same time. I can do the same thing on the fade out handle. So here in the bass vocal track, there's a spot where there's a pulsive, and you can see it, but you can also listen to it. Let's get a little more.
Peace in the valley.
So by ducking the volume with this automation node, I've reduced the trouble it causes. So I've slip edited the vocal, I have normalized the tracks into the effects, and I have a good starting place for mixing this next tune.
Go out yonder, peace in the valley. Come downtown, rumble in the alley. Oh, you don't know the shape I'm in. Has anybody seen my lady? She's living alone, it's gonna drive me crazy. Oh, you don't know the shape I'm in.
There you go. That's what I got to show.